Jason High made one of the most unforgettable and unforgivable mistakes in UFC history with a split-second outburst. It was UFC Fight Night 42 in 2014, and High was facing Rafael dos Anjos. The fight was brutal, and High believed he was unfairly stopped by illegal strikes to the back of his head. But instead of accepting the loss with grace, High let his emotions hijack his common sense. In a moment of pure rage, High jumped up and violently shoved referee Kevin Mulhall, who was simply doing his job. The entire arena fell dead silent, shocked by what they'd just witnessed. UFC President Dana White wasn't even present at the event, but he didn't need to see the footage to make a decision. When he heard what happened, he instantly declared, "High finished." "I don't care how mad you are, how upset you are," White said. "You don't touch a referee ever. Unforgivable. Don't come back. Ever." White went even further, comparing High's actions to Paul Daley's infamous sucker punch, calling High's shove even worse. The UFC has zero tolerance when it comes to the safety and respect of referees, treating them like untouchable figures within the sport. High later issued a humble apology on Twitter, writing, "Incredibly sorry and embarrassed for the ref incident. Will never happen again." But apologies meant nothing to Dana White or the UFC. High's promising career was instantly extinguished before he even stepped out of the octagon. Today, Jason High spends his time coaching younger fighters, using his own devastating mistake as the ultimate cautionary tale. His story serves as a powerful reminder. You can disagree with a referee's call all you want, but touch an official, and your UFC career ends immediately. No second chances, no negotiations, just a lifetime ban from MMA's biggest stage. Matt Riddle. Matt Riddle wasn't just failing drug tests. He made marijuana use his signature excuse, and it backfired spectacularly. After his UFC 149 victory, Riddle casually dropped one of the most absurd lines in MMA history. "I smoke marijuana so I don't beat my wife and children." UFC President Dana White, already known for his fiery temper, couldn't believe what he was hearing. When Riddle tested positive again after defeating Che Mills at UFC on Fuel TV 7, Dana finally snapped. "This idiot is beyond pathetic. He's a moron." Riddle had tested positive for marijuana twice in just 7 months. Both his recent victories were immediately overturned to no contests, turning his promising UFC career into a joke overnight. Despite his talent, ranking 3rd in UFC history for takedown defense and 8th in total strikes landed, Riddle's off-the-cage antics cost him dearly. The UFC wasted no time cutting ties, terminating his contract for breach of the fighter conduct policy. Following his UFC exit, WWE eagerly took him in, and he found a brief second chance complete with flashy catchphrases and acrobatic flips. But history repeated itself. In 2023, WWE also dismissed him due to substance issues. This wasn't just an athlete making careless mistakes. It was a gifted fighter casually throwing away millions in potential earnings and a legacy he could have built. Riddle insisted marijuana helped manage personal pressures, suggesting UFC should have provided support instead of dismissal. Dana White, however, saw it differently. "You're so weak-minded and so addicted to marijuana, you couldn't stay clean enough to pass a drug test 3 times a year." He dug his own grave. Igor Severino made UFC history in the most bizarre and shameful way imaginable, by channeling his inner Mike Tyson, but definitely not in a good way. In his highly anticipated UFC debut at UFC Vegas 89, the 20-year-old Brazilian seemed poised for greatness. But midway through his fight with Andre Lima, Severino did the unthinkable. As the fighters grappled, Severino snapped and suddenly sank his teeth deep into Lima's bicep. The crowd exploded in disbelief. Lima recoiled, showing the world unmistakable bite marks that would soon go viral. Referee Chris Tognoni, visibly horrified, instantly called off the fight, staring at Severino as if he'd just witnessed a crime. UFC President Dana White wasted no time, stating bluntly, "Now he gets cut and loses the biggest opportunity of his life." And just like that, in under 2 rounds, Severino's UFC career was done, officially marking it as one of the shortest and strangest tenures in UFC history. But here's the kicker. Lima embraced the bizarre incident by tattooing the bite mark permanently onto his arm, proudly captioning it, "I got bleep bonus underneath." Thiago Silva. Thiago Silva's UFC career didn't just end. It exploded in one of the most chaotic meltdowns imaginable, complete with SWAT teams, guns, and one of the most embarrassing reversals in Dana White's tenure as UFC president. In early 2014, Silva found himself surrounded by a SWAT team at his Florida home after allegedly threatening his estranged wife with a firearm. The UFC reacted swiftly and decisively, cutting Silva from the roster immediately. As Dana White put it bluntly, "When the SWAT team is surrounding your house, you're probably in big trouble." Shockingly, after months of legal battles, Silva's charges were dropped due to insufficient evidence, leading White to reverse his initial decision and re-sign Silva, stating he was innocent until proven guilty. But this comeback was short-lived, because the real bombshell was still waiting to explode. Just a few months after being welcomed back into the UFC, video footage surfaced that no one saw coming. It clearly showed Silva holding a gun, accusing his ex-wife of having an affair in their shared home. This disturbing revelation gave Dana White no choice but to cut Silva yet again, permanently ending his UFC career. Silva's troubles didn't start or end there. Back in 2011, Silva's fight against Brandon Vera at UFC 125 ended controversially after Silva was caught submitting fake urine during his pre-fight drug test. Silva later admitted he had injected steroids due to a severe back injury. "I was desperate," he confessed, "completely broke and had a family depending on my money." His chaotic personal life continued to overshadow his fighting career. Run-ins with police, failed drug tests, and threats of violence became his calling cards. Silva was banned for marijuana use in 2012 and had multiple public altercations that made him increasingly toxic to major promotions. After leaving the UFC, Silva wandered through various smaller Russian promotions. Once considered a fierce contender in the light heavyweight division, his skills diminished as personal demons relentlessly haunted him. Renato Sobral didn't just cross the line at UFC 74, he erased it completely. What he did was more than just breaking rules. It was a disturbing display that transformed him from respected fighter into something dangerously close to criminal. Sobral faced off against David Heath, and the fight quickly turned brutal. By the second round, Sobral had already gashed Heath's forehead, leaving him bloodied and vulnerable. Then Sobral locked in an anaconda choke, forcing Heath to desperately tap out. But Sobral didn't stop. He tightened his grip even more. Referee Steve Mazzagatti screamed in Sobral's ear to let go, tugging frantically at his arm. But Sobral held on with chilling intensity for 3 terrifying seconds after Heath lost consciousness. The roaring cheers from the Las Vegas crowd quickly turned into horrified silence as Heath lay motionless. When Sobral finally let go, he stood up calmly, utterly unfazed. In a cold and calculated interview moments later, Sobral openly admitted to Joe Rogan that he wanted to teach Heath a lesson for disrespecting him during the weigh-ins. The arena was stunned, and Dana White was absolutely livid. White didn't hesitate, immediately cutting Sobral from the UFC and declaring, "This wasn't competition. This was assault." It wasn't just the UFC that came down hard. The Nevada State Athletic Commission fined Sobral $25,000, withholding half of his paycheck for excessively maintaining the submission. Sobral later tried to explain away his actions, claiming he didn't feel the initial tap. But the damage was already done. Despite being a gifted fighter with a previous impressive win streak, Sobral's career in the UFC ended right there.